Hey guys, it's Rezael back in the Corporate Vanguard deck profile. So I hope you guys enjoyed the attack. I'm scrubbing so this time we are covering DZ set 2 for Keter Century Rezael, or to be more specific, the Faded Miracles version. The reason why I specified this is because thanks to Akina, I decided screw it, let's go back to that one time where I just didn't run PGs in one of my decks, and back to a different time where I didn't run heal triggers in one of my decks, combine them together and do what he did against Taizo. So this version of the deck, aka the Faded Miracles, is the one with PGs and the ones with heals, aka the one that's supposed to be more serious and more competent than the other one is, and yet for some reason that other one is really good at what it's supposed to be doing, which leaves a lot of questions. But let's go into the start shall we see what we got, because honestly the nice defense that it has is good, not to mention the fact it can still do a pretty good aggro game, which is nice to have. So first today we have a ride deck crest, energy generator. You might deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you would ride, put this card to your crest zone. If you win second, energy charge 3. Continues to be up to 10 energies, and auto at the beginning of your ride phase, energy charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy boss 7 to draw a card. All around pretty solid. You get a free 3 energy every turn. The only card in the deck that uses energy, aka Biscotti over here, takes up 3 energies, so pretty much you will always be able to use skill. Well, actually not her, just herself. Nibras also does it. So being able to get energies off of both of them is pretty solid, not to mention the fact that if by some miracle or unfortunate miracle that you don't hit either of them, you can use the MG Boss 7 to draw a card. So it is nice. All around it's a good card. And again, the energy generator being a free 3 charge 3 means at least one of them is getting free for that turn. So it's a nice card to have. And of course, we have our starter in Wings of Aspiration Soel. Rezael boost, 5k shows, okay, base, auto run protobond, because I can draw a card. Standard starter, nothing too special about it. None of the ride line really requires Soel, so you can really run any starter you want, but because, you know, Soel is Rezael's confirmed starter, might as well run Soel on the ride deck. So again, but you can really run any starter you want. And we run our triggers. We run our Overtrigger Light Dragon DD of Honor's Armor Tinoa. Rezael boost, 50k shield, 5k power, Overtrigger in your deck, and reveal it as a trigger with a card, draw a card, choose one of yours. It gets plus 1 for the turn. If you reveal it during your drive check, activate its additional effect, which you get until end of turn. You also perform drive checks for the battles your rear guards attack. All around pretty solid. That means your rear guards have more pressure, and when you're constantly attacking with your rear guards in this deck, most of the time you're getting 5 attacks. So it's the way I play, you get 5 attacks. Being able to get more drive checks is all around pretty solid. If you are playing the aggro version, and again, if you want to see that deck profile, go find the one that has True Miracles listed in the thumbnail. But if you're playing the aggro version, I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like that deck really loves to sack the over on the offensive turns. To be more specific, grade 1 when you're swinging if you go full on board, which that happened one time on camera. And if we go watch that match, it was Illyrio versus Razel video, the one with True Miracles. And if we watch that, in that game 3, when I swung, I just called my units like normal. I pulled the over, and then I proceeded to flip 2 crits after that. Like, it's a thing, but one of our Tinoa. Either way, more drive checks is nice. You can run Volume Up for more consistent multi-attack. You can run Asphoria for recycling, but honestly, more drive checks is more drive checks. And this deck, the way it's built, is kind of like sometimes it'll struggle on the defense, so you're going to want more hand cards, but you're also going to want the drive check offensive that you get. So one of our Tinoa. And we have our normal triggers: 3 Protection Magic Proby, Rezael boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continues guard talk as a draw trigger. If your opponent's vanguards are grade 3 or greater, plus 5k shield. So no 9k shield, which is nice to have because again, this deck goes back and forth between offense and defense. So being able to have a nice extra 5k shield, total of 10k shield in your hand is a good card that can help fluctuate with that. Also, not to mention that it's a draw trigger, so it helps increase the hand card amounts. You know, Persona Rides or Guarding. All around Proby is very helpful. A nice 3 of. Then we have 8 crit in total, 4 Chivlama. So Rezael boost, 50k shield, 5k power. This can only be any crit you want, but it's the canonical crit for Razel, so I might as well run it. And then we have 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon. I do actually recommend Blade Feather. Rezael boost, 50k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, boosted, put this unit to soul, choose our music 2k for the turn. Okay. Cool. Now here's the thing. Apparently, with the introduction of With the introduction of Arrow Boy over here, the sole problem that existed last time just doesn't exist anymore. Turns out you give them 1 consistent soul charge and automatically fixes every problem you have with soul. But you know, worst case scenario, you don't hit Arrow Boy. You play 4 Blade Feather on rear guard, you shove them all to soul, give your rear guards plus 6. But either way though, being an extra critical trigger and recyclable via Razel's Divine skill over here is nice to have. You can really run any crit you want, but just in case you don't hit Niblis, you might as well run 4 copies of Blade Feather, and the 8 crit pressure is nice as well for, you know, triple drive and recycling crits. Then we have 4 heals and bring over distant sounds. Aranos, Rezael boost, 50k shield, 5k base, You can really make this any heal you want. It's a vanilla heal. You can use counter heals if you want to, but I prefer the consistent 15k shield of vanilla heals rather than the fluctuating 10 to 25k shield of counter heals. But hey, you know what? You do you, and if it works out, it works out. Then move on to our grade 1s. 3 copies of Aerial Sage. I'm not going to lie to you. After seeing the new doggo, I actually was about to drop Aerial Sage outright, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep him, because there was one game where Aerial Sage saved my ass, and I owe him that much, and by default, considering the other units I do that with, I might as well give it to him. He's also a grade 1, and if it hasn't been made clear enough already, I like to aggro. So, you know, being able to aggro on grade 1, more reasons I should keep him even if I don't like him. Anyways, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, contains rear guard and body boost and anything. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater with Razel in its card name, this unit has the power for the battle. So 13k booster, which all around pretty solid just by being at grade 3. And auto rear guard 1, this unit boosts a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Razel in its card name. Ditch a hand card, counter charge 1, and this unit gets you 2000 power for that battle. So 15k booster is nice. It gets you more resources, which is also nice. The reason why it's tech down to 3 is because A, we have a better counter charger in my opinion in the form of Gorgon over here, but also because his discard skills tends to be the reason why I have a hand problem on the rare occasions I do use it. Like, it's not a guaranteed hand problem half the time, but for some reason, if I use Aerial Sage even just once, it will put me into a hand deficit some way, somehow. So, yeah, and there was one time where I tried to circumvent that by running Wayward Therapy Angel, both in this version and the, hyper-aggressive True Miracles version. Let's just say when I drew the Angel, I didn't draw Aerial Sage, and then when I drew Aerial Sage, I wouldn't draw the Angel, therefore it was useless and I was basically running a vanilla in my deck. So, through Aerial Sage, he is nice to have, he does get some counter charge, he is a 13k booster once you get to grade 3, and he's a nice early game call target where your opponent might kill you because, again, 13k booster. So, through Aerial Sage, nice card for rushing, nice card for boosting, good card. Then we have 3 copies of the superior counter charger in my opinion, and the Keter counter charger in everyone's opinion. Gorgon. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, contains rear guard if your unit was placed by the ability of your Vanguard with Divine Skill this turn, not by your Vanguard's Divine Skill, or I mean, it can, but, you know, as long as your Vanguard has Divine Skill and it called something that turn, this unit will get auto rear guard, it boosted, retired, the counter charge 1, and it will get plus 5,000 power. All pretty solid because whether or not it's in the front row or back row, it's at least a 13k, so worst case scenario, even if you're not going to get the counter charge because it's in the front row, you can at least use it to be a 13k swinger, which is nice to have, especially when Rezael can get you more multi-attacks, and that's typically what I do with Gorgon. Weirdly enough, this deck does not have a CB problem anymore, which doesn't make sense. You would think it's because of these two, right? You would, except I don't use Aerial Sage often anymore because, again, hand deficit, and I don't use Gorgon skill at all because I keep calling it the front row to aggro. So I don't know what happened. I don't even remember what... Actually, I took out Karibus. You know, in hindsight, I'm starting to understand why I was having a soul problem and counterbalance problem, even though Karibus was at a 2 of... I think it may have been his fault. Weirdly enough, though, in Leo, he doesn't seem to be having much of a problem. But you know what? 3 of Gorgon, either way, very solid grade 1, gets you counter charge, opens up board space in case you need it for next turn, and it's a 13k swing, so it's nice to have it at 3 of. Then we have 4 copies of Gorgon, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Okay, so this card, I hate calling it because that shield does actually make the difference. I have been in plenty of matches where that extra 5k has made the difference, but at the same time, there are games where I need the booster. Except, thankfully, someone is always watching my back, and whenever I need to flip a Gorgon from her skill, I'll flip one. So thank you, Nobia, for having my back on this one. Either way, though, 4 of this little doggo, so grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues rear guard circle. If you have a grade 3 greater Vanguard Rezael in its card name, it gets plus 5 in power and 5,000 shield after both players' turns. So during both players' turns, a 10k shield and a 13k base. Pretty much, if you can't tell, the entire grade 1 line is you are having 13k boosters. Like, one way or another, you are having a bunch of 13k boosters on board, and the only way you're not going to have that is if your opponent's constantly board nuking you and your only options are calling triggers. Like, Gorgon is a very solid grade 1, and with the advent of those new set orders that can move stuff from rear guard to guard circle, even while binding, hinting at another deck I have planned, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, automatically I feel a little bit less cautious about calling Gorgon because now it can be placed back on that guard circle and I still get my 13k booster out of it. Either way, though, Gorgon is a very good card. 13k booster, 10k shield, nice early game rush card. Pretty much all of these are early game rush cards. And again, as a liker of rushes, I really like to have that. And not to mention the fact Nobia seems to flip Gorgon whenever I need it to. So 4 of Gorgon, very nice doggo, good card. And for copies of PG, Bringer of Guardian of Kesslon, the weirdest name I've ever read. Grade 1 boost, 0 souls, K base, continuous Sentinel, map don't force out the Zach, 4 Sentinels in deck, and all when it's put on guard circle. Choose one of your it cannot be hit on the battle if your hand has no more cards in it. Choose a card from hand, discard it, standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this is only one of the cards in your hand, plus on guard circle, you don't have to discard, which is great because that means you can be as aggressive on the early game. Spam the hell out of these and this too, and then when your opponent counterattacks you, PG! And if they're playing Blackmire, well, PG before the Divine skill. And then you're pretty much safe from there. All around, Kesslon is a very solid PG. You can run Paladin, Zero Dragon, or you could run Aegis Mire over this because they'll have the exact same skill. But I prefer Kesslon because, well, it came out close to the time of Razel's release. Also, something I've learned that you can just do against Blag, which is incredibly stupid and funny. At least with this deck, I've been doing it consistently and it's somehow working a decent amount. Just use Rezael's skill, call PGs and or triggers from drop zone, and then when they bind your stuff, just bind those and specifically call them to the front row to aggro more so that they can't kill your rear guards and that you can just keep pressuring. I don't know why that's been working. It reminds me of the time that I outplayed a prison player, not because they were dumb, they were actually really smart, but I just used their prison to my advantage by letting them constantly bind my overdress units. This was back in set 1, by the way, for D, but I constantly let them bind my overdress units so they were always getting triple drive to the point where they decked themselves out, or they were supposed to deck themselves out, and they just got to the point where they didn't see triggers and I was able to overrun them because I constantly had access to new overdresses. It was dumb and it was really funny, but either way, 4 of Kesslon, very good PG. Then we have the last grade 1 in the deck, one of in the red deck, none in the main deck of Patrol of Gus Vanesta, grade 1 boost, 5 Shield, AK Base, Auto Rotopon by Night of Great Advance, Ascendior, calls card to rear guard circle and soul charge 1. All arm pretty solid, free rear guard, soul charge 1, again, just aggro. The entire grade 1 line is aggro galore, and if you don't do that, at least with this deck, if you don't do that, if you copy it verbatim, you are doing something wrong. And then continues rear guard during your turn. If you have a grade 3 grade Vanguard of Razel's card name, this unit is 2,000 power. 10k booster, okay, you know, out of all the boosters, it's definitely the worst one of the group, but hey, you know what? You can call it the front row, and unlike the rest of them, well, I mean, to some extent, Gorgon, it'll be a 10k swinger. So that's nice. It can poke at grade 2 rear guards or vanguards. Nice card to have all your opponents at grade 2. All around, very good grade 1, one of in the red deck, none in the main deck. It's a nice rear guard advancer. And move on to our grade 2s. 2 copies of the order that has saved my ass enough to where I don't care what people say about this. I'm running this until the end of days or until I do not have the space to run it. One of the two. Heavenly Bright, grade 2, Blitz Order, play up Energy Blasting 2, look at the top card called to guard circle, put it back to top. If you called that called unit, gets +1 shield for the battle. So you basically either get a lot more shield, at least a guaranteed 10k, worst comes to worst, you calling a grade 3 from this, or you stack a trigger to top and then guarantee Raz's Miracle effect. This card has saved me so many times. Blag, Lyriel. Well, actually, was it against? Yeah, it was against Lyriel, actually. And it saved Akina against Lyriel, too. It saved me against Zorga, Dianos, etc. There was a lot of times where Heavenly Bright came back to save my ass. So I owe Heavenly Bright my life, and I'm putting it at 2 of because I draw all of them every game. So, yeah. That's my argument. If you don't want to run it, fair enough, but I owe it my life and I have to stick with that. 2 of. And move on to our normal units for grade 2s. 4 copies of Knight of Bowstreaks Nobilis, grade 2 units at 5k shield, 10k base. Auto and placed on the rear guard circle by your grade 3 or greater Vanguard's ability. This unit gets +1 to the power for that turn. So cool, be placed by any Vanguard's ability. It's a 20k. I now realize I could just tech this in the other deck I was hinting at earlier when I was talking about Gorgon. So, you know, I might go rebuild that. Actually, I was going to rebuild that deck anyway. So either way, nice 20k swinger, or the turn is placed via card abilities. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Rezael. Sadly, it has to be placed by the Vanguard specifically, so it doesn't have that synergy with Nobia, Biscotti, or even Ascendior over here. But you know what, it is what it is. And then auto rear guard, if about to attack into anything. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Razel in his card name, Energy Blast 3, Shell this to Soul, the other energy user, so we have a total of 3 of them. Weirdly enough, all of them are next to each other on the sides. Draw a card and look at top of your deck, put it to top or bottom. So, deck stack for triggers for either, you know, drive checks or Razel's Miracle effect. Send itself to Soul, so automatically you have free fodder for Nobia. And, well, yeah, that's pretty much it. All around pretty solid. Nobilis is a nice swing card. It goes to Soul. It gets you more hand cards. To replace itself deck stacks. It can then be sent to drop zone via Nobia Soul Blast, and you can call it next turn via Razel and just keep repeating the loop. All around, Nobilis is a very solid grade 2 support card. And it's fine that this is the only, like, real technical support card Razel got in set 2. I specify real because, technically speaking, Gorgon is for the entirety of Keter Sanctuary that involves Divine Skill, since, you know, they also have Leo. But the one specific support card to Razel, yeah, they really only needed one when it was this. So 4 of Nimbus. And then we have 4 copies of Divine Sister Biscotti. Okay, just like Heavenly Bright, I owe it my life until I run out of space. I'm keeping Biscotti. Great turns at 5 Kishido, 10k base, auto, and put on guard circle from handers, guard from your hand while riding from the ride deck, counter boss 1 G boss ready to draw a card. You will never use that skill to counter blast, although you do actually have the ability to use it to counter blast. So also, this is the deck I swap frequently the most between counter blasting and EB Force. You know, disregard the first statement. Either you, depending on the situation, most of the time you will energy blast, but if you have access to him, you're probably going to counter blast for the Biscotti to, increase the hand, which is good because it can be used when discarding for ride decks. You can replace your ride deck discard, or when put on guard circle, which will help increase your hand for guard power and keep you alive. And while it wasn't necessarily the Biscotti that did this for me, it was the Dragon Empire version of her, which eventually saved my ass in the game, and then is the reason why I won that game, because I was able to make it to the next turn because I top decked with Trigger. So Biscotti alone is a 4 for that reason alone. And then her other skill is auto and placed on rear guard circle. Persona roll this turn. Counter boss 1 energy boss 3. Leave top 3 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 from among them. Put it to top and put the rest on bottom. And then if it was not placed during the battle phase, you may call it to rear guard instead of putting it to top. All around pretty solid because it's either a way to get more rear guards or a way to deck stack on Persona ride turns. And considering she can be placed from anywhere for that skill, aka Raziel's call from drop skill or Nobia's call from deck skill, is automatically applicable. All around Biscotti is a very solid grade 2. I do love her skill a lot, and I think she's great for both defending and just making a good offensive Persona right turn, so 4 Biscotti. And we have 4 copies of Night of Gentle Beauty Nobia. So Nobia is the card where, back in set 1 where the deck did have somewhat of a soul problem, Nobia was kind of like the knife stabbing into my side, where her call skill was okay. Sometimes, most of the time, there's a 50-50 chance I wouldn't hit anything I would like to call. But then, her on-attack skill was great, except it would constantly be stabbing me in the, stomach because, she's taking out my soul that I want to use on other resources. However, apparently with the advent of this deck, the removal of Career Break, the adding of this, and everything else, I guess, somehow Nobia's Soul Blast skill has had no detriment so far, and her Superior Call skill has almost always netted me the card I asked for. Quite literally, if we go back on every game I've recorded so far, and we, put up the real audio, I will literally say I need XYZ, the most recent one, Lyrio versus Rezael. I said I need Gorgon, I call Nobia, use the skill, flip a Gorgon. It just happens on its own. Either way, though, 4 for her, but her skill, if you're wondering. Auto when she's placed on rear guard circle. You have a grade 3 graded Vanguard of Rezael on this card, and counter boss 1 like the top 3. Just a 1 grade 3 unit card from among them, call it to rear guard circle and put the rest on bottom. And then if it's your battle phase, you may reveal it to your hand, and you have to put it into your hand instead of calling, so sadly you can't get remote attack out of her. And then auto rear guard when she attacks into a grade 3 graded unit, whether it's Vanguard or rear guard, if you have a vet grade 3 graded Vanguard of Rezael on this card name. Soul boss 1, and she'll get plus 10,000 power for that battle. All around pretty solid. She's a 20k swinger, which is nice to have, and again, this deck literally does not have a soul problem, so go ham with that. And not to mention the fact that she can call herself from her own skill and keep calling and calling until your board has no more rear guards to call to. And when she's placed during the battle phase via Raziel's skill, well, she's a way you can add possible PGs or triggers to hand, so she doesn't specify she has to call normal units. All around, Nobia is a very solid grade 2. Deck thins for rear guards and or hand cards, is a nice 20k swinger or 30k swinger on Persona ride turns, is an amazing grade 2 who seems to be pulling me out of a lot of bad situations and keeps flipping me the 1 unit I constantly need on board. So 4 of Nobia, she's just a very solid grade 2. I also just love her art. Then move on to our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the right deck and on the main deck of Knight of Great Advance, Ascenior. Grade 2 set 5k shield, 10k base, auto rolled upon by a grade 3 card of Rezael in this card name. She's a grade 2 less card from your drops and call it to rear guard. Okay, half the time I call grade 1s, simply because I constantly forget that it can call grade 2s. But yeah, being able to ditch Nobia for ride deck, then immediately call her back and then get more rear guards out of it's fun. Same thing with, Nobilis, and then also just fill up your drops on with grade 1s and call them back. Unless your opponent is playing a nuke deck and going first, you are most likely going to have a full board the second you get to grade 3. Most likely, if you're playing this, if you net deck this and you play it the way it's supposed to, you will 100% get a full board before the second you get to grade 3. Hell, maybe even before you get to grade 3, unless your opponent's going first and they also are playing a board nuke deck. So one of Ascenior on the right deck, none on the main deck. It's a nice card. It's literally just a free call that can lead to more calls thanks to the existence of Nobia. So one of. Then we move on to our grade 3s. 3 copies of Gigantic Masher, as I like to call him, the card that doesn't effing show up half the time. Grade 3, 200% 13k base, continues rear guard. If it was placed on the rear guard by your ability of Vanguard Razel in this card name this turn, plus 15,000 power. So 28k. That is such a good skill, you know? It's so nice to attack with it. If only I got the chance to attack with it. Because apparently Masher likes to stay in the bottom 20 cards half the time. I am forever mad about this because so many games I purposely set up my plays, my rear guards, everything, in the assumption that I'm going to hit Masher for a 28k to 38k swinger depending if I Persona Road that turn. But no! Masher decides he's gonna F me over and then stay in the bottom 20, so half the time I gotta make up a new move on the fly. And yet when he ends up in my opening hand, we're going ham on that turn because now I actually have a consistent 28k beat stick. 3 of Gigantic Masher. He's a very good grade 3. Oh yeah, the other reason I hate Gigantic Masher, because half those times that he does show up in my hand, by the way, it's against decks where you want to guard early against, such as Black Demire, because they can go ham later on, and you're going to need all the buffer damage you can get. And since Rezael specifically has to call based on the number of cards in your damage zone, typically I am not going past 2, meaning I can't use Masher anyways. Half the time, Masher is a vanilla. But you know what? The times that he does show up, he pretty much either gives me game guarantee that turn, or he almost guarantees me games. Like, consistently, the turns I play Masher, he either forces out a PG I wouldn't have gotten out, or he gets rid of every card in my opponent's hand, or he auto-wins me at that turn because they can no longer guard him. Either way, Masher's a 3 of. I feel like if I put him a 4, I would see him more likely, but everyone else is far more important. But, Masher, come on, man. Come on. Give me something here. Work with me here. Give me some way to consistently play you, because I do like you. And then we have our last grade 3 in the deck. Obviously, our main grade 3, one of in the right deck, 3 of in the main deck. A faded one of Miracles, Rezael. Grade 3, turns out Persona, 13k base. Weirdly enough, I hated Rezael. It was guaranteed for me the second I saw the faded ones revealed, I was gonna like Zorga the most. Then, slowly over time, I liked Varga after reveal. I didn't like Rezael at first at all, after skill release. Then, specifically after Blag was revealed, and I was really hyped for Blag, I then liked Rezael simply because I kept rewatching the match between him, between Akina and Taizo, and it was just so cool to me, like the theme that was playing the entire time, and you know, that one specific scene where Akina goes for his final turn. So I don't know why I like Rezael from that. Now I literally play that every day as like a loop, but whatever. Anyways, skill. Auto Vanguard when it attacks into a Vanguard. Combats once you have to 2 cards of different grades and a total grade less than or equal to your Vanguards, equal to the number of cards in your damage zone, and call into rear guard. So it goes to have 3 damage. You can call Gigantic Masher and Solo. I always keep forgetting to Soul Blast Solo, so it's half the time I don't, you know, have an extra 6k booster. I typically only have a 4k booster because typically it's either only Proby or Blade Feather and drop zone if I didn't use my Divine Skill that turn. And speaking of the Divine Skill, Act Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, return all criticals from your drop zone to the deck and shuffle it, and then this, you know, get +1 drive for that turn, and then until the end of this fight, you cannot ride use without Razel and their card names, and you get, when your damage check reveals a trigger other than a heal, if your damage zone has 5 or more cards in it, choose a card from damage zone to heal, and then you lose this ability, melee to activate Divine Skills a total of once per fight among all your cards. All around pretty solid, because, you know, it just gets you back a bunch of free criticals, and for the record, this deck has pretty much the same chance of drawing crits as my other decks do, that the ones that don't deck thin for crits, and yet inherently, this deck will see more than half. Okay, well, this version of the deck doesn't see half its crit that easily for some reason, but the set 1 version consistently drew half of its crits before I got to grade 3. And again, same consistency as my other decks. So it doesn't make sense how the deck just automatically knows to draw crits, but I'm not going to complain. Free guarding, free triple drive with more crits back. The more important part is, and I'm just going to say this now, the one thing I noticed about Rezael, the turn after you use the Divine Skill, if you use Divine Skill on first grade 3 turn like Akina does, it sucks when you don't flip triggers, and it feels so awkward to only have Twin Drive. And I know this, because I deal with that, and almost every time I will go 2 drive checks and see no triggers, and I will just cry a little bit on the inside because a single trigger would have auto-won me the game that turn. But you know, it is what it is. Either way, though, on swing, calls to rear guards, possibly to front row or same column. So, you know, more multi-attack. Obviously, your targets are Nobia / Smasher, which all around are all pretty solid. Not to mention the fact, Divine Skill turn, simple Soul Blast, triple drive, extra crit, possibly with your 8 crits going back to deck. All around, Razel is a pretty solid grade 3, and I do like him a lot. This skill just is really based on the amount of cards in your damage zone, but thankfully with the way this deck is built, aka having a heavy reliance on grade 1 rush, typically, if you activate this skill at all, that automatically implies you have 1 card in damage zone, and you probably have at least 1 grade 0 in drop zone, whether it was solo, you soul blasted earlier for divine skills, or trigger you just guarded with earlier, you automatically basically have call targets. So, good how this deck works. So 3 of the main deck, 1 of the right deck of Rezael, all around a very solid grade 3. Without further ado, that's it for this deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All of this deck is actually very fun to play. And again, I used to hate Razel, and then just over time, I actually began to like it a lot and just enjoy playing it more. I mean, this deck is super consistent. It gets rear guards off the wazoo, and again, like I said earlier, unless your opponent's going first and they're playing a board in your deck, you will almost always have a full board by like the second you hit grade 3. You have plenty of deck stack targets, and by plenty I mean Nobros, which is more than enough. You have Smasher, who if he shows up for you is the biggest beat stick in the game in the stupidest way consistently. We have great draw power and Biscotti, board pressure, Nobia, who just loves to give me what I want. Gorgon, who is amazing for pressure and guarding. Gorgon, who's amazing for resources. Aerial Sage, who's good for resources. Not to mention the fact the best grade 1 rush consistency I've ever seen. That's saying something from a guy that loses to grade 1 rush consistently. Not to mention an order that just casually can save your ass on consistent occasions, and the ability to return 8 crisp back to deck. So, without further ado, I'm going to this one here. I hope you guys enjoyed. All of this deck is very fun to play, and I do recommend you trying it out. But personally, if you want to hear my opinion on it, play the True Miracles one first. And you can watch that video after this one because True Miracles is personally more fun to me. Not to say this one isn't fun, but not having PGs and heal triggers and basically having to play with a guillotine across your neck the entire time. I don't know why, but that's really adrenaline filling. So I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, to Twitch, and don't forget to send up your Vanguards.